Welcome to today's discussion. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Sean. We're here to break down the latest news stories for you.
Let's start with the Democratic Republic of Congo, where an Ebola outbreak has become the deadliest in the country's history.
That's right. The government figures show that 2,325 people have lost their lives to the disease. Can you put that number into perspective?
To put it into perspective, that's roughly the population of a small town. The UN has also been tracking the situation closely and reported that one person is dying every 30 minutes.
That's a staggering rate. I saw that the UN warned the virus is essentially winning. What does that imply about the current situation on the ground?
The reporting suggests that the outbreak is spreading rapidly and the death toll is mounting quickly. Just last week, the rate was one death every 28 minutes, indicating the situation is deteriorating.
So the numbers are not just high, they're also increasing at an alarming rate. Has the outbreak surpassed any previous records in the DRC?
Yes, it has. The current outbreak has now killed over 2,300 people, surpassing the 2018-2020 outbreak as the deadliest in the nation's history.
I understand that government data was released on Sunday. Are there any indications of what might be driving this outbreak to be so severe?
The articles don't speculate on the exact causes, but they do mention that it's a fast-moving outbreak. That suggests there might be challenges in containment or possibly a high transmission rate.
That makes sense. Containment is always a challenge with infectious diseases, especially in regions with limited healthcare infrastructure. Have there been any significant responses or interventions mentioned?
The reports focus on the death toll and the rate of infection, but don't go into detail about specific response measures. However, it's clear that the situation is being closely monitored by the government and international organizations like the UN.
Okay, so the situation is dire and getting worse. What's the latest on the total number of cases, not just deaths?
The exact number of total cases isn't provided in the articles I've seen, but we know the death toll is 2,300. Typically, the number of cases is higher than the number of deaths, as not everyone infected dies from the disease.
Right, so there are likely many more people infected beyond the reported deaths. How does this compare to other Ebola outbreaks globally?
The articles focus on the DRC situation, but it's worth noting that Ebola outbreaks have occurred in other parts of Africa. The DRC has experienced several outbreaks over the years, and this one is particularly severe.
I see. So this is not an isolated incident, but part of a larger history of Ebola in the region. Are there any concerns about the outbreak spreading to neighboring countries?
The reports don't mention specific concerns about spread to other countries, but given the region's connectivity, that's likely a concern for health officials.
That makes sense. The international community usually steps in during such crises. Is there any mention of external aid or support being provided?
The UN's involvement is mentioned, indicating some level of international attention and possibly support. But the details of specific aid or interventions aren't covered in the articles.
Okay, so while we don't have all the details on the response, it's clear the situation is grave and demands attention. Let's summarize what we've discussed so far.
We've talked about the Ebola outbreak in the DRC becoming the deadliest in the country's history, with 2,325 deaths reported. The situation is worsening, with one death every 30 minutes, according to the UN.
And we've noted that this outbreak has surpassed previous records in the DRC, indicating a severe and rapidly spreading situation. The international community, including the UN, is involved, but the specifics of the response aren't clear from the reports.
Exactly. The key takeaway is that the situation is dire and requires continued monitoring and possibly enhanced response measures.
Well, that's all for today's discussion on the DRC Ebola outbreak. Thank you for joining us.
Goodbye, and we'll see you later.